Hello, everyone, and welcome. In today's explainer, we're diving straight into the 2018 Office Memorandum on Reservation for Persons with Benchmark Disabilities. We're going to unpack this foundational piece of policy in a way that's actually simple and easy to understand. This document followed the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act of 2016, and it literally dictates exactly how central government jobs are reserved for disabled candidates. It's a genuinely fascinating look at how bureaucracy attempts to quantify and actually enforce equality. Okay, let's map out exactly what we're covering today. We'll be taking this section by section, looking at the 4% quota, category exemptions, the 100-point roster computation, carry-forward rules, horizontal reservation, and we'll wrap up with grievance redressal. All right, starting us off is Section 1, the 4% reservation quota. This is the exact quantum of reservation mandated by the government for direct recruitment. So here is the absolute bedrock of this whole policy. The crucial point is that exactly 4% of the total number of vacancies filled by direct recruitment in the cadre strength of groups A, B, and C absolutely must be reserved for persons with benchmark disabilities. And listen, this isn't just a suggestion or a loose guideline. It's a strict mathematical mandate. It's applied across these central government posts to guarantee representation at multiple levels of government service. We're talking opportunities ranging from entry-level clerical roles all the way up to senior executive positions. Moving right along to Section 2, categories, exemptions, and adjustments. How is this 4% quota actually divided up among individuals? Well, the government doesn't just throw a blanket 4% out there. They actually slice it up with incredible precision to ensure fairness. The memorandum strictly allocates 1% each to Category A, which is blindness and low vision, Category B, deaf and hard of hearing, and Category C, locomotor disability, which includes conditions like cerebral palsy, leprosy-cured, dwarfism, and acid attack victims. Then Categories D and E, which cover autism, intellectual disabilities, mental illness, and multiple disabilities like deaf-blindness, well, they share the remaining 1%. It's a highly specific breakdown, right? And it's designed that way to ensure no single disability category monopolizes the reservation. Now, here is a really fascinating question of fairness. What happens when a person with a benchmark disability applies, but they don't actually need the relaxed standards to get the job? The policy is super clear here. If a candidate qualified using normal standards right alongside the general candidates, they take an unreserved spot. They are not adjusted against that reserved 4% share. That reserved 4% is strictly filled by eligible candidates with benchmark disabilities who might be lower on the general merit list, adjusting them using relaxed standards if they need it. It's a brilliant way to ensure that the reservation truly acts as an additional support net rather than an artificial ceiling holding anyone back. Okay. Section 3, computation and 100-point rosters. This is where we get into the exact mathematical mechanism the government uses. So how do you guarantee that 4% in the real world? Well, you use a roster. Every government establishment must maintain a group-wise 100-point vacancy roster. Think of it like a giant grid divided into 4 distinct blocks of 25 points each. To hit that 4% mark, the policy dictates that points 1, 26, 51, and 76 are strictly earmarked for candidates with benchmark disabilities. By placing these reserved points at the very beginning of each block, the government makes sure these specific candidates are prioritized super early in the hiring cycle. But here's the clever part, the built-in flexibility. Let's say a vacancy pops up at point number 1, but the role isn't identified as suitable for a person with a benchmark disability, or maybe it's just impossible to fill it with such a candidate right at that moment. The reservation doesn't just disappear into thin air, it simply shifts down within that 25-point block. And if none of the first 25 posts are suitable, the reservation just cascades down into the next block, meaning 2 vacancies from the 26 to 50 block will then be reserved. The whole system is designed so the opportunity is never just lost. It keeps cascading until it finds a suitable fit. Next up is Section 4, carry forward and inter-exchange rules. So what happens if an entire recruitment year goes by and a suitable candidate simply isn't found across any of those blocks? The policy mandates a strict sequence of events. First, you absolutely must carry the vacancy forward to the succeeding recruitment year as a backlog reserved vacancy. If it still can't be filled by the original disability category in that second year, Step 2 kicks in. You try interchanging it with the other benchmark disability categories we talked about earlier. Only as an absolute last resort, if no suitable person with a benchmark disability can be found across any category, can the employer finally move to Step 3 and fill the vacancy with someone outside those disability categories. Seeing how this timeline builds over the years highlights something crucial. While these vacancies are fiercely protected as a backlog, they don't last forever. In the initial year, it's reserved for a specific category. In the first subsequent year, it becomes backlog and opens up to interchange among the other disability categories. Now, if it's eventually filled by a non-PwBD candidate, because literally no one else could be found, the reservation is carried forward for one more period, up to 2 subsequent recruitment years. Only after all of that does the reservation finally lapse. It's a highly structured, heavily protected safety net stretched across 3 potential recruitment cycles. Now for Section 5, Understanding Horizontal Reservation. This is probably the most technical concept in the whole memo, but it's arguably the most important. To understand it, we have to contrast it with vertical reservation. Reservation for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and OBCs is what we call vertical reservation. But unlike those vertical caste reservations, PwBD reservations are horizontal. This means they cut right across the vertical categories in a system called interlocking reservation. It places candidates appropriately within the broader demographic quotas. Let's put that into practice so you can see exactly how this interlocking works. If a disabled candidate, who is also from a scheduled caste, is appointed, they take an SC point on the master reservation roster. Conversely, an unreserved candidate with a benchmark disability takes an unreserved point on the roster. It perfectly demonstrates the interlocking system. You don't have these separate isolated buckets. Instead, the horizontal disability quota weaves directly through the existing vertical caste and unreserved quotas. Finally, Section 6, Grievance, Redressal, and Compliance. Having a dense, mathematically sound policy is great, right? But enforcing it is the real test. To ensure accountability, every single government establishment is legally required to appoint a senior officer as a grievance redressal officer. They have to maintain a strict register of complaints. So if you face discrimination in employment, you file a complaint with them. And this is key. The officer is legally bound to inquire into the complaint within a strict 2-month window from the day of registration. Plus, they must formally communicate the outcome or the action taken directly back to the complainant. And for ultimate macro-level transparency, this compliance data isn't just shoved into some internal filing cabinet. All ministries and departments must upload their exact representation data, meaning exactly how many PwBD candidates they employ, to a central portal, rrcps.nic.in, every single year on January 1st. This mandatory annual public data upload is what keeps the establishments honest and fully accountable to that 4% mandate we discussed at the very beginning. So we've unpacked all this meticulous planning today. The 4% quotas, the sliding 100-point rosters, the carry-forward rules, and those interlocking horizontal grids. But it really leaves us with a critical thought to ponder. How well do these strict mathematical rules actually translate into real-world accessibility and equitable employment for persons with benchmark disabilities on the ground? Does this kind of bureaucracy create true, meaningful inclusion or just compliance? Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me for this